of the U.S. like protection laws, like.
I don't know how the situation works in the U.S. but I know they have some protection law. It's like,
Oh, we're on.
You are? Cool.
Yeah, it's just not coming up, I think.
It's just my face. This is very nice. So you're going to Denver tomorrow?
I'm going tonight, actually.
Oh,
I'm
tonight.
getting a lift with some people.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, there we are.
Oh, wow.
Going again.
Oh, cool. Why isn't it wearing hair? Is there another kind of conference? Or just going?
I'm going to meet some people, actually.
Oh, very nice. Washington's definitely going to be cool.
Gotta say hey.
I think it should be taped, kid. I don't know. It's not really going to do much.
I mean, I don't think it's gonna like fall off.
So, it's streaming. It's just this camera? Was it like that yesterday?
Yes. This camera is for the YouTube.
I totally figured that it was kind of like.
What I was trying to do during lunch that like wasn't working was get the live stream to go through this camera instead of through the webcam, because this camera will actually like be good. Not that this one looks like that bad, but like it wasn't like as good. Called him like 4 times.
He's not coming.
Yes, it's just kind of lame for him to just like not say anything.
Yeah, it's really weird.
It's not necessarily bad that he's like not coming. Like, it would have been cool to like know.
Say something?
Also, like the brand.
She's Brenna said she's pretty.
Yeah, she's in like a musical.
she likes red
You can sit right here, and it's kind of set up. This is going to be recorded. This is off. This is Zoom. Does that make sense? Yeah. This is like twist, and then if you loosen it, it goes up and down. So let's try it. You can do that. Back and then tighten, twist, and then zoom. Awesome. So right now, this is where people are pretty much going to speak, if that makes sense. Then we'll just make it a little higher. Above his head. Let's see.
And you mic showing up.
Just sit here. Awesome. Just because it's awesome. Yeah, you want to shoot him a message on Facebook and say what's going on? Like, yeah, you got this. Like, just play.
Alright.
I shot a message to Sandra and, oh, did you sign in?
No.
Okay, yeah, let me sign in.
I grew up with rats, so I had a lot of like
We're gonna get started now. We want to wait for some more people to come. So we'll get started, and Shay will read the bios and manage the time. Awesome. Everybody gotta go.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Shay. I'm going to be the facilitator for this session. And this one is called Intersecting Impressions, the Animal Industrial Complex and the Educational Industrial Complex. It's presented by Dominica Firu. Yeah. How do you say it like really fast? Okay. And just a short bio of her. She is a teacher, scholar, activist, artist living in Calgary, Alberta. She holds a BFA from Alberta College of Art and Design, a BEd from the University of Lethbridge, and an MA from Concordia University. Benica is currently a PhD candidate at the University of Calgary. Her dissertation employs focus group research to investigate the school experience of teenagers who are vegan. Benica is primarily interested in transforming educational spaces to reflect values of intersectionality, inclusivity, and justice. And so she's going to speak for about like 20 to 25 minutes, and then after that, we'll do like a public Q&A for about 30 minutes after that. And I'll let you know.
Okay. Mine actually might end up being a little bit shorter because I'm actually in 2 presentations. So if you flip to the very end, we're doing that one right now. And that's scheduled for now doing it. Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and it's great to be here. Thank you to Anthony and Sean and everyone else who helped to organize the conference. So the title of my presentation I actually changed, so it's a working title, towards anti-capitalist education, the animal industrial complex, and the educational industrial complex. So this presentation and paper were inspired by an earlier issue of JCAS, so Journal for Critical Animal Studies. And that issue was a special issue paralleling the prison industrial complex with the animal industrial complex. And so I was really interested in further expanding that to also include schools. And I should add that a lot of these parallels that I'm going to make will probably also work in a post-secondary situation. But just for the focus of my work, I'm going to use K-12, so kindergarten to grade 12, because that's where most of my experience is. So just briefly, before I get started, I'm just going to contextualize place and where I'm from. I'm from Alberta, Canada, and specifically a city called Calgary. And Alberta is, a lot of people think of it like the Texas of Canada, so the main commodities are oil, gas, and cattle. And so the schools kind of really embrace that flavor. So in this presentation, I'm just going to, I structured my paper into 3 main components. So parallels in terms of the structure of these institutions, and then the really bizarre relationship that curriculum, like taught curriculum, has with the non-human animal agriculture industry. And then finally, how values in the capitalist school system kind of promote ideas that are not conducive to collective liberation. And then I had questions that we'll just do that to the end. Okay, so first of all, there's some really obvious structural similarities between slaughterhouses and schools. So you can kind of tell a little bit just by looking at these 2 pictures. But first, there's this idea of surveillance and disciplinary power. So when you think of a slaughterhouse, the people that are working on the kill floor have very little power. Their job is very mechanical, and they're just killing. And they don't even control the speed of the kill line. And they're very much answering to an external authority. And that's kind of similar in schools. So if you think about students, they're kind of the lowest people in the school. They have to sit in rows typically, and to put up their hands. So there's all of these mechanisms that put power in someone else's hands, essentially. So the teacher is the disciplinarian, and teachers are further disciplined by principals, or then further disciplined by administrators and in governments. There's also the idea of segregation. So slaughterhouses are usually physically segregated from cities and from the rest of society, so they remain hidden. And it's kind of similar with schools. So when parents send their children off to schools, they essentially get to forget about them for 6 to 8 hours a day because they're away, they're in a separate building, and they're far from where their parents are. And they also, like both children and non-human animals that are being sent to slaughter, move through a series of stages in a process that is eventually designed to make them ready to eat a product. So that kind of makes sense with slaughterhouses. For children, the stages they move through are grades. So the only thing they have in common are the people that are really, like they're segregated by age, and then they move through those grades until they're ready for society to consume, essentially. There's also petty mechanisms that are used in both slaughterhouses and schools. So one of them is like the de-individualization. So we see that in slaughterhouses with things like ear tags and like maybe tattoos on ears of non-human animals. And with schools, that happens with things like ID cards or like ID tags or even ID numbers that are assigned to students. They're also organized quantifiably in terms of lining up. So we force non-human animals to line up as they march to their own slaughter. And we force children to line up for a variety of different procedures as well so that we can control them and it's more efficient for the system. And finally, I'll talk about this a little bit more in the next section, but structurally it's interesting that both systems also rely on corporate funding and interests from other groups. So for slaughterhouses, what that looks like is like genetics testing companies are often aligned with slaughterhouses, and sometimes post-secondary institutions as well benefit from the commodification of these animals. And in terms of schools, schools are often they're sponsored by companies like one school I worked at was sponsored by Pepsi, so our entire gym had Pepsi stuff all over it. But also things like textbooks and computers and sometimes school resources are paid for by these companies. So there's this very like incestuous relationship between schools and companies. So I'm going to discuss that in a little bit more detail in the curriculum section. So in Alberta, our curriculum that teachers are legally required to teach, all of those curricular objectives are online. So they're on a website called Alberta Learning, and anyone can access them. So a child can access it, and any member of the community or public. So that makes it really easy for corporate interest groups to come up with lesson plans and other resources that they design specifically for teachers to use. And of course, that then calls into question the idea of schools as neutral places. So one example of that, I'm just going to focus on the non-human animal agriculture industry. And so this is just one example. There are many resources that teachers get. If you think about it, they have a lot of work to do, they have a lot of paperwork to do. So when someone gives a teacher a free lesson plan, it can be really tantalizing, I guess, to use that lesson plan. Because the teacher will know then that it's already aligned with the government curriculum. So this is one that a parent of one of my participants showed me. And so it says, grow with agriculture. So you can already kind of look just with the imagery. So first of all, the title, grow with agriculture, is kind of bizarre. So it's really positioning the physical growth of children with the economic growth of the non-human agriculture industry, assuming that those things are going to go together. It also reinforces the assumption that non-human animal products as meat are necessary for the physical growth of children. And then as you can see, it also utilizes this really pastoral, idyllic, nostalgic imagery of non-human animal agriculture to sell meat, essentially make children lifelong consumers of meat. So this one's called Farm Touch Alberta. It deals with chicken and eggs, and we'll just zoom in on that top section there. So this one again was like the imagery I found to be really problematic. So from a very basic level, it's a very sterilized portrayal of chicken and egg production. So the big glaring thing that stood out to me is that it really ignores a lot of the procedures that these hens are subjected to, such as they call it beak trimming, but it's essentially amputation of the beaks. And that's nowhere in this image, but it was on another resource designed for older children. They do discuss it, and how they rationalize it is that beak trimming is necessary it makes it easier for chickens to eat, apparently. So it really just ignores the idea that, hens in sanctuaries are just fine without having that done. So again, there's the portrayal of a small-scale family farm, and then that's supposed to correlate to, you can see at the end, it's supposed to end up at a grocery store. So that actually makes no sense from a mathematical standpoint alone. If you're shopping for chicken and eggs at a grocery store, there's no way it came from a farm that looks like the one in the picture. And then finally, there's the idea of intergenerational farming in Alberta. So no one in the image, I know it's kind of hard to see with the color on the screen, but in real life, so everyone from the children who are learning about this process to the people in the processing plant and the hatchery are all white. So that kind of it reinforces the idea that farming in Alberta is synonymous with white Alberta identity. Okay, so yeah, this one I have two for milk, and I'm just going to quickly discuss the problematic nature of school milk programs. So you probably can't see, but one of the sentences is that cows produce more milk than their calf will need, so that's what children are learning. Here's another one. So, again, from a very basic standpoint, it's associating milk consumption with happiness and fun and games, and everyone, including the cows, are really happy to be drinking the milk. I feel like the other more important problem in school milk programs is that they're very colonial. So, if you think about schools as ethnically diverse places, 80% of the world actually don't have a tradition of cow's milk consumption, and many indigenous and non-Western populations, people can actually digest cow's milk, including me. So that kind of is problematic with the idea of cow's milk as a highly nutritious and perfect food. That's often how it's marketed. And then it becomes associated with the perfectibility of bodies and the superiority of specific bodies. So that bodies that can't digest milk are sort of thought of as deficient or intolerant. That's kind of, I feel like, a problematic power dynamic when you have diverse schools. It also speaks to the power of the West to define global dietary norms, right? Okay, so so the final thing with curriculum that I found really problematic was Alberta. We have this thing called the Calgary Stampede, and the Stampede is essentially it's rodeo, chuck wagon races, and calf roping is how it originated. But now in the last probably 30 years, there's been other things like roller coasters and like fair food, kind of this big capitalistic culture. So one component of the Stampede is called Eggy Days, and that's kind of like a cute term for agriculture days. It's used to bring in children and teachers. So this is a photo of one Eggy Days exhibit. So this is actually at the exhibit, and children and the public can walk around, and you can watch this mother sow in a gestational crate with her babies. So there's a lot of things going on here. I won't have time to fully go through all of them, but first of all, like the normalization of violence. There's also this idea of non-human animal as a spectacle or as a curio whose only purpose is for human observation and curiosity. And then, of course, the objectification of female non-human animal bodies and a complete disregard for female reproductive autonomy. There's also another one, so I'm just going to read you a quote here from one of the parents that I interviewed. So she says, "I remember from the exhibit at Stampede that there is a life-size cow with a lifelike vagina. They get kids to line up, stand on a stool, and put their arms in, violating the cow to feel her fetus." So that was a little bizarre. And so not only are children then learning that humans are superior and that they have control over the sexuality of non-human animals, but that this is like acceptable and like totally okay in these industries. Okay, and then so the final section I wanted to discuss is the values in schools. I know that there are a lot of schools, particularly here in the States. There's three that come to mind. There's one called Alternative Academy, there's Muse School, and then there's the Institute for Humane Education. And those schools are definitely working against this capitalist system of education. However, they're private, and so they're not financially accessible to most students. So I'm really just talking about public schools here. But so the first value is conformity. We know that with capitalist systems in general, but in schools, children are they're depersonalized, they're isolated, they're seated in rows, making them easier to be controlled and easily silenced. And so the main objective of that is obedience. students, right? Because we want these children to grow up to be obedient workers in the workforce. There's also fragmentation of subject areas. So I don't know if anyone remembers, but I know for me, when I was in school, you would go to math class and you'd have a math lesson, and then you'd go to science and you'd have a science lesson, etc. So there's a fragmentation of subjects, and subjects are deprived from context. Very often when we learn things, we are actually learning more than one subject at a time. And so this deprives subjects from their context and prevents children from making connections between disciplines. There's also an emphasis on competition, so that occurs through like test scores and standardized testing, and things like honor roll, which create a hierarchical order. And then that leads to these really problematic binary systems in schools. So academically strong, academically weak, physically strong, physically weak, human, non-human, like a dissection, for example. Sorry. Oh no. Okay, I think that's essentially it. Yeah, I had one more thing, but I don't know what I did. Sorry, how do I write that down? Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. I did have one other point, which is that, okay, the way that social justice is sort of sold and marketed in schools is also very problematic. So, typically in like high schools and junior highs, they will have things like Gay Straight Alliance Club, or like Black Hispanic Alliance Club, or like Immigrant Club, like just Environmental Club and like Animal Club, and these really weird, different clubs, but it's very rare to see these different clubs working together. And it's also kind of problematic from a school perspective. So these different clubs are in constant competition for the attention of school resources and teachers who must supervise them. And they operate more to pacify students and say, okay, here you go, here's something just for you, rather than to cultivate meaningful change, which could be accomplished through unity and collaboration. That is the end. Okay. Do I just
So our next session is going to be presented by Ms. Alexandra.
It's Mahani Hammond.
Okay. And a brief bio on her is she is currently an associate professor of comparative literature at the University of California, San Diego. Her research has been shaped by concern with intersecting structures of modification, engaging with literary and cinematic production, as well as the social and biological established herself as an innovative interdisciplinary and transnational scholar who conjoins Atlantic studies with species studies through post-structural and eco-critical readings of what Cicely calls dignification, discourse on colonialism. Her current book project, Post-Colonial Zoopoetics, Species in Brazil, United States, and Africa, represents an extension of her previous research on slavery and race in Brazil. Post-Colonial Zoopoetics will be published in Penn State University Press series, Animalibus of Animals and Cultures.
I wish to dedicate my talk to Juma the jaguar. As Paul Watson of Sea Shepherd wrote on Facebook last June, the Olympic travesty of 2016 will be most remembered as the farce that murdered a jaguar, and as such I could not care less who wins one of those silly gold, silver, or bronze medals. All that I will remember is a noble animal lying in a pool of her own blood, with a Brazilian soldier standing over her with a smoking rifle. I've been at work on two seemingly distinct projects. One, a zoocritical study of Brazilian literature and cinema. The other, a collection of memoirs about caregiving and grief. This talk gives me a chance to bring them together, despite some bumpy transitions. So I'll appreciate your feedback. To explain how I arrived here, my experiences with the interface of race and species evolves out of 25 years teaching in academic departments in which animal studies was not only too extreme, but seen as antagonistic to human rights, and, in particular, social justice for peoples of color. Questions of species and race seem to be incompatible, and being a part of these academic communities required silence. I recall a member of my cohort stating of some animal rights protesters at UC Berkeley's Sproul Plaza. These students care more about animals than they do about people of color. This discomfort was the catalyst for my perplexed meditation, out of which I began to tentatively articulate a rejoinder. Beginning with, I learned to care about other species from my Iranian mother, who at age 14 swallowed her last bit of animal flesh after witnessing one too many acts of slaughter. The quotidian public butchering of lambs, goats, and chickens hadn't offered her the veil behind which the reality of slaughterhouses is hidden in the industrialized West. She had also learned a thing or two about intersecting forms of violence from her own mother, who wept to the cries of inmates being tortured in the Shah's nearby prison cells and fed homemade yogurt to the neighborhood strays, cats, and dogs to induce vomiting and, hence, eliminate the poison routinely administered by animal control. My empathy has a much less predictable trajectory than you wish to allow. Together with the disclosure of my individual animalist trajectory from the Shah's prisons to livestock butchering blocks, I came to understand not only the symbolic inversion constituted by ethical veganism's association with white privilege, but moreover white privilege's reliance upon discourses of speciation. In Between the World and Me, Ta-Nehisi Coates' language for people who believe they are white lends itself to a dialogue about the pretense of human versus animal, though to adapt his words to this end points to the lesion between civil rights and ethical veganism. You are well versed, all of you, in the obstacles to alliances between anti-racism and anti-speciesism, given that many of the most visible U.S. animal advocacy organizations lack critical awareness of the nuances of race, class, gender, and sexual exploitation, even as they harness these related modalities for their own purposes. While PETA invokes slavery and the Holocaust, at the other end of the spectrum, speciesists seize upon tradition, especially indigenous tradition, to deflect arguments about the ethical and environmental devastation of animal agriculture, with declarations like, "But Native Americans blessed the animals before killing them." Does the speaker consider herself a Native American at heart, uttering a prayer each time she consumes a chicken wing? Does she think this originary blessing sanctifies all subsequent violence inflicted on so-called animals within the United States, a polity itself perversely validated for the fetish of Native American spirituality? sexuality and tropes of indigenous resistance employed in the name of football, redskins, and military force, Apache, Comanche, Chinook, Lakota, etc.? Does the speaker think the animal gives a damn whether they were blessed by their killer? Rationalizations for so-called humans' yearly rendering of billions of animals rely also upon non-Western subsistence fishers and hunters, and our remote ancestors, as in the paleo diet, wherein Neanderthals' dependency on raw meat symbolically infuses 21st century animal husbandry with romanticism, primitivism, hypermasculinity, and despite the direct causal relation between animal agriculture and environmental collapse, being quote-unquote in touch with nature. What follows is an attempt to probe the prototype of respectful indigenous slaughter and substitute it with a series of counter-narratives, taken from, first, Brazilian literature and cinema, second, the contemporary Brazilian socio-political scene, and third, my evolving understanding of animal life as the result of caregiving and mourning my parents' deaths. In tribute to Carol Adams' feminist vegetarian interruptions, Joy Williams' rants, and, as we will see, Guimarães Rosa's meows and growls, it is inspired by Elizabeth Costello's observation that literature is more formidable than rational argumentation in stimulating an empathic response. To quote, "If I can think my way into the existence of a being who has never existed, then I can think my way into the existence of a bat or a chimpanzee or an oyster, any being with whom I share the substrate of life." I begin with a discussion of anthropophagy. Originally a colonial fantasy, the idea of the indigenous man-eater inverted and sustained Europe's destruction of indigenous and African peoples, while also concealing the intensification of violence against so-called animals with animal husbandry. The discourse of anthropophagy, elaborated by Brazilian modernist intellectuals during the 1920s and 30s, spoofs Brazilian cultural identity, identifying the Tupi cannibal as tongue-in-cheek national leitmotif. In dialogue with European surrealism and primitivism, anthropophagy is a critique of colonial fetishism which privileges Brazil's racial and cultural heterogeneity, defining the nation's predominant characteristic as the consumption of that which is foreign. Cannibalism becomes a way for Brazil to produce a new and dynamic culture on the basis of ingesting its enemies, Portugal and later the United States. This cannibalistic driving force is captured by Oswald de Andrade's pronouncement in English, to be or not to be, that is the question, which itself devours Shakespeare to regurgitate an original problem. And to be Guarani are the predominant indigenous group in Brazil. A neglected implication of European stigmatization of man-eating is that it masks the massive scale slaughter and consumption of non-human animals pretended by colonization. By extension, an understudied dimension of anthropophagy is its intersecting critiques of whiteness and anthropocentrism. If eating the other is a means to evade being eaten or racially diluted, anthropophagy parodies the European drama of a natural order wherein whites consume non-whites and animal life is continuously subject to ethically and legally condoned violence. As Carrie Wolf reminds us, Freud observes that eating non-humans ensures the prohibition against eating humans that is at the core of the Western Judeo-Christian ethos. One of Brazil's most important anthropophagic cinema novo films, Nelson Ferreira dos Santos' How Tasty Was My Little Frenchman, which came out in 1971, provides an example. In Como Era Gostoso, How Tasty Was My Frenchman, the Tupinamba tribe give their captive a widow for a wife, who seduces him and with whom he lightheartedly rehearses his ritualized killing. Robert Stamm defines Dos Santos' film as an anthropophagic critique of European colonialism. It offers a didactic lesson in cultural relativism, indirectly posing Montaigne's question, who are the real barbarians, and inverting the homogenizing convention by which Europeans perceive only generic Indians. They are all the same. Hence, the Indians are unable to distinguish between the French and the Portuguese. Randall Johnson observes that the inability of the tribe to discern that their captive is French reveals the fundamental conflict between Europeans and Brazilians, as opposed to the system of alliances between the Tupiniquim and Portuguese on the one hand, and the Tupinambá and the French on the other. Let's take Como era Gostoso's treatment of false dichotomies and misinformed alliances a step farther. The majority of Dos Santos' film consists in the prisoner's attempts to prove he is French so as not to be killed and eaten by his Tupinambá captors. The irony is that the Frenchman is killed because the tribe thinks he is Portuguese and thus their enemy, whereas the audience knows he is French. Friend, not foe, the captive is not properly edible, though the chief tells his captive that he will morrer como um animal, die like an animal. Underscoring this parody and pointing to the ultimate commonality rather than difference between captor and captive, the Tupinambá incorporate him into the social organization of the tribe, making him one of them prior to consuming him. On the one hand, tribal custom allows the captive to become a member of the community prior to his death, but the director's emphasis upon the shaky reasoning according to which he qualifies as meat points to an arbitrary, unreliable human-animal dialectic. Carrie Wolf's interpretation of Jonathan Demm's thriller, The Silence of the Lambs, 1991, helps us think about Dos Santos' film. Reading Species in relation to Western anxiety about what Freud dismisses as perverse zoophiliac identification with non-human animal suffering, Wolf observes that Hannibal Lecter's message is not, I eat animals and therefore not humans, but rather, I eat animals and therefore humans. In The Silence of the Lambs, eating flesh, this is from Wolf, eating flesh is not an injunction against eating human flesh, but instead an invitation to it. Demm subversively demonstrates that what Lecter does to humans and what Buffalo Bill does to Catherine is precisely what species as society does to animals. But ultimately, the film calls upon Starling to overcome her identification with the lambs of her childhood trauma by means of an energetic ascent out of her working class past and into the law of culture embodied by the FBI, a compensatory silencing of the lambs that only drives a wedge between women and animals, the two homologous objects of Warren's logic of domination. It says in so many words that Starling has finally arrived at full subjectivity because she now understands that lambs cannot be saved, only people can. I now turn to the contemporary political arena to show you how wide-ranging cannibalist narratives are in Brazil, with conflicts between political parties imagined in terms of ingesting the defeated enemy's bodies. On May 12, 2016, Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff was ousted in a coup mobilized by Brazilian elites, supported by U.S. financial interests, and facilitated by Rede Globo, the media conglomerate which also manufactured consent with the military coup of 1964. The Golpistas stirred traumatic memories of the dictatorship. Among the new government's first orders of business was to establish an all-white, all-male cabinet, shut down the ministries of culture, human rights, women's rights, and racial justice, soften the definition of slavery by removing the terms degrading conditions and exhausting shifts from the legal classification of slave labor, and curtail the provision of rice and beans to poor people known as Bolsa Familiar. The forces behind the coup are reminiscent of a fascistic league of cannibalistas known as the Verde Amarelos, the yellow-greens, the colors of Brazil's flag, seen in abundance during the coups of both 1964 and 2016. In contradistinction to the progressive anthropophagic modernistas, in the 1930s and 40s, the Verde Amarelismo, or yellow-greenism, of the integralists employed man-eating as a metaphor for authoritarian governance. Influential during Getúlio Vargas' first mandate from 1930 to 1945, their ultranationalism envisioned the dual authority of the state and a familia brasileira, the Brazilian family, in capital letters. In a chilling echo of the integralists' man-eating, the April 17, 2016 lower house of Congress vote to impeach Dilma was a spectacle of testosterone-driven shouting in which the 513-member Chamber of Deputies rose, one by one, to declare that Dilma should be ousted in the name of God and the Brazilian family. This ritual destruction culminated with the outrageous speech by federal deputy Jair Bolsonaro, in which he dedicated his vote for impeachment to Coronel Brilhante Ustra, the former head of DOI-CODE, the Brazilian intelligence and specifically anti-communist repression unit during the military regime from 64 to 85, the first name of whose acronym, DOI, means pain or hurt. DOI-CODE was known for its torture methods, and Brilhante Ustra was specifically responsible for devising torture methods for women prisoners, and in particular pregnant prisoners. Bolsonaro's exact words were that he dedicated his vote to the memory of Coronel Carlos Alberto Brilhante Ustra, the dread of Dilma Rousseff. Bolsonaro's celebration of Rousseff's dread resubjected her to the tortures she had sustained without naming names during the year she was imprisoned for her anti-dictatorship activities from 1970 to 1972. The cannibalistic undertones of the coup became even more overt with the disclosure on May 23rd of a series of phone conversations providing evidence that Dilma's impeachment was directly related to obstructing the anti-corruption investigations known as Lava Jato, or car wash. Romero Jucá says, quote, "We have to change the government in order to halt the investigation's bloodletting." And he expresses alarm that if the investigations continue, a vast cadre of pro-coup politicians will be eaten. His exact words were, everybody on the platter to be eaten. And the first to be eaten will be MIG, a reference to its ally, Senator Aécio Neves from the state of Minas Gerais. Dozens of memes were immediately generated about Brazil's anthropophagic politics and Aécio being eaten, including one featuring Hannibal Lecter, behind bars, reading to Aécio from a list. Are you the first to be eaten? As one friend posted, it's too tempting not to talk about it. I can see why gringos are obsessed with anthropophagia. Another friend said, I'm just getting back online and need you to get me up to date. Has Aécio been eaten yet? It is important to note that in Brazilian Portuguese, comer also connotes sexual penetration. Cannibalism is an omnipresent trope in Brazilian culture whose relevance for species strikes me as an open secret. Another is the zoocritical reflection of João Guimarães Rosa, who lived from 1908 to 1967 and is considered one of Brazil's greatest writers of all times. In his short story, My Uncle the Jaguar, in 1961, published in 1961, Rosa's mixed-race narrator is a former wildcat hunter who becomes remorseful about the suffering he has inflicted on creatures he now acknowledges as kin. They left me, and then there's a long quote. As Davina Marques observes, his empathic transformation is signaled by abandonment of Portuguese, the colonial language, in favor of a blend of indigenous Tupi-Guarani, together with the onomatopoeia of the wildcat. Rosa's hunter-turned-feline takes revenge, recognizes that cats are kin, even falling in love with one of them, and is haunted by the kinfolk he has killed, remembering the graphic details of how each was stalked, ambushed, and destroyed. The taming of Brazil's sertão, or so-called backlands, the indigenous genocide, and the marketing of jaguar pelts come together as hybrid trans-species yowls, meows, and roars mediate the hunter's transformation from man to animal. Watching my mother and father slowly waste away activated an ancient trans-species murmuring. Scared stiff, I had what Amazonian shamans call susto, which literally means fright or shock, and is characterized as a form of chronic somatic suffering stemming from emotional trauma or from witnessing traumatic events lived by others. Frequently conceptualized as a case of spirit attack, and what Western medicine defines as a combination of PTSD, depression, and chronic active Epstein-Barr. I began attending ayahuasca ceremonies, hoping to restore my vitality and ameliorate my haunting relationships with the dead. Ayahuasca is an entheogen which is said to open a pathway between providing instruction in living and dying. And entheogen, for those who don't know, is a plant medicine frequently hallucinogenic used in spiritual practice. Ayahuasca returns me to the experience of watching my parents disappear, first stopping to catch their breaths, then skeletal and immersed in deathbed visions, their bodies changing hue. Though the process of painstakingly deconstructing these experiences is difficult, I invariably feel connected to something larger. Part of that connection involves being drawn into locales ranging from primate experimentation labs to bullfighting rings, but most consistently with captive pigs. I feel their heavy, terrified bodies and wide, shocked eyes. We go shoulder to shoulder as the truck shakes along the highway, the metal casings clattering in the frigid air. Their suffering is extreme, incessant, and massive scale, and my desolation is aggravated by the fact that the vast majority do not see or care. How can I be their best advocate? Words don't open cages, and writing doesn't resolve the problem of pigs huddled together on a slaughterhouse-bound truck. Just as Native Americans bless the animals, the Quran dictates that so-called animals are offered a prayer and water before slaughter. I feel my mother watching them as they crane their necks from the gourd, disinterested in water, their eyes fixed precisely on the glistening bit blade poised alongside it. I feel her brutalized love in her care for the sparrows her own mother, Sakine, would catch and instruct her daughter to hold within her small palms, conveying them to a neighbor who would behead them, sending my mother with their lifeless bodies back to Sakine to cook. I am with her, delivering the soft, fluttering animals to their deaths. With such tenderness, she cradles them before surrendering them to their executioner. The horror never leaves her, nor do the sparrows. They take roost within her, stretching up through her neck to peer out through her kohl-rimmed eyes, surveying a world of treachery, but also the wide blue sky to which they hope to return. At age 8 in Dunn, North Carolina, I stood beside an injured pig, fallen or escaped from a slaughterhouse-bound truck, her breathing being an affront to the clandestine domain of intensive animal agriculture. We gathered on the black asphalt by her prone body, the adults exchanging words about what was to be done as the odors of gasoline and oil intermingled with the scent of charred flesh wafting from Dom's garage and grill. My mother eventually led me away by the hand, explaining that the adults' talk about saving the pig meant only that she would be preserved to be killed and eaten. She took me back to the road several times to keep the injured pig company. She was barely moving, but her eyes were wide open. My mother said things that other people did not, for she never came to terms with the killing all around her. Unlike Sterling in the Silence of the Lambs, who eventually discards her naive, immature empathy for animals. Holding sparrows in her palms as they received their death blows, she refused to accept the narratives that would make it all right. To be held in the gaze of my dying mother was to see myself, flesh and not bone that would turn to ash, and to be beholden to sparrows. Donna Haraway writes about the ways in which guardians and their co-species trade cellular information as a result of centuries-long contact, adapting and evolving in dialogue with one another, exchanging DNA through skin and saliva. She stops coldly short of recognizing the radical potential of that contact and the instability of the human that always threatens, like Roser's hunter, to turn feline. One of the ways that this eruption or outburst occurs is through narratives of trans-species cellular or embodied empathy. Rosa's growl interfaces with the irreality of what Elizabeth Costello calls the sympathetic imaginary, her attunement to the quotidian horrors to which the vast majority is indifferent, such that she wonders if she is mad. Surrounded by murderers, is it she who sees things askew? I quote, "A sparrow knocked off a branch by a slingshot, a city annihilated from the air. Who dare say which is the worst?"
So our next session is presented by Jessica Ison. She is the representative for ICAS in Oceana. She is a PhD candidate at Latrobe University
hi everyone. Thanks so much for having me. It's so wonderful to be here. I just wanted to start by acknowledging that I'm on native land. I think the Ute people, the southern Ute. And in Australia, we always like to pay respect to whose land we're on, particularly as a colonised country, and to acknowledge the privilege and that we need to be working towards changing white supremacy and colonialism. So I just thought maybe we'll take a second to acknowledge that and to think of whose land we're on. Okay, I'm going to do one of my papers on some of my PhD research. As you can see from the beginning, my PhD research is very academic from answers.com. So that's 10 years of higher education and a lot of money, right there. Let me bring you this. Why don't lesbians eat meat? Answer. Not all lesbians don't eat meat. It's a matter of personal preference, which includes various factors. So I just thought I'd enlighten you more about that. So, I want to start with a story. So, who knows the TV show Queer as Folk? People. Okay, so the start from Queer as Folk, his name is Brian Kinney, is one day getting a blowjob in the back room of the club called Babylon. He's trying to unwind after a really hard week at work because he's trying to figure out an advertisement for a steakhouse. And so he's there getting a blowjob, and the person next to him, who's a bear, like not one of your bears, more like a gay type of bear, is also getting a blowjob from, another bear. And the person getting the blowjob next to him says to the person blowing him, I guess the blowee, he says, "That's right, boy, eat the meat." And then Brian laughs because he's figured out his advertising campaign for the steakhouse. So in my work, I'm trying to work through the ways we can bring together queer theory and animal studies, but also queer activism and animal activism. So this is one of the things that I've been thinking through a lot. So at this conference, we've thought a lot about the different forms of exploitation and different types of what we call intersectionality. And so in my paper, I'm going to talk about the ways in which animals are now being used in a process of what we call homonormativity. So I'm not sure if people are familiar with this term. So we have this concept called heteronormativity, which basically just means everything is really, really straight. And that's seen as what the norm is, right? And so then we're told to kind of assimilate into this straight world. And anyone who's queer knows what this is like. Whenever you're feeling a bit hungover on a Sunday and you try to watch like someone queer on TV or on a movie and you're just like, man, I'm so sick of watching straight people get it on in that really bland way. But you've already watched all the bad queer films, and so you've got to watch reruns for Queer as Folk. And hence really good PhD research. So that's called heteronormativity. So what we call homonormativity means gay people trying to create certain types of gay norms that are acceptable. Case in point, gay marriage, right? So the idea is we should be able to get married and be just like straight people. We should be able to be in the military and kill people just like straight people, right? This is what the big gay agenda is right now, which is a tragedy since queer liberation started off very, very radically. So this is what we call homonormativity, and that's what I'm talking about a lot in this paper. The ways in which we see social movements start to be lured into conforming, right? And so gay liberation has been doing this dramatically. It's been completely whitewashed, and it's also now, with things like gay marriage, trying to make us just like straight people, right? So yeah, this is case in point of one type of homonormativity. So this is from the Sydney, everyone know the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras? It's like one of the biggest gay events in the world, right? Actually, I can update this, because this is, ANZ's one of the biggest banks, needless to say they're evil, and this is some of the other sponsors. So if we think about gay liberation started at Stonewall, or actually before then, but most people think of it as Stonewall in the West, with Sylvia Rivera throwing a brick at the police. And here we are. You probably don't know some of those corporations. Actually, you probably know all of them because they're international. But actually, this is a little updated thing that I noticed while I was here, which is just so great. The Mardi Gras board has just, last year, our Prime Minister, oh no, it was this year, marched in the Mardi Gras. He's the first sitting Prime Minister to march actually in the parade. So aside from all of everyone who's been hearing my rants about problematic things in Australia, we have really terrible refugee laws, in case you don't know. You're talking about, your now president's talking about building a wall. Well, we put our refugees on islands, so we already have a wall. So he marched in the Mardi Gras, and there was a huge, there was some right there, it just happened to be right next to a refugee group. You can watch the footage, and they'd start yelling at him, which was wonderful. This just the other day, the Mardi Gras board were like, hey, you're not allowed to march in the parade anymore until we have gay marriage. I was like, okay, so you're allowed to march in the parade with your refugee laws, but you're not going to give us gay marriage? Oh, no, you're not allowed in, right? So this is kind of the state of fair politics. And one of these things is also, so back here, neoliberalism. Most of you probably know what neoliberalism is. If you don't, just think Hillary Clinton, case in point. All of her legislation, all of her ideas is neoliberalism. This is the era we live in, but it's really odd. Most people don't know what it is. But our time right now is commonly now called neoliberalism. So the way that gay liberation has started to change is within homonormativity, which is very neoliberal. So I've got some quotes there. The legal reform work that currently operates under the rubric of lesbian and gay rights, or sometimes LGBT, lesbian, gay, bi, trans, is an example of this shift from a more transformative social movement agenda to an inclusion and incorporation focused professionalised non-profit legal reform project. That's from Dean Spade, and this other one is from Brian Conrad. The neoliberal fantasy of the nuclear family is the only provider of emotional and economic safety, is being recovered and deployed by the contemporary gay rights movement. So the idea is we should be able to get married and live behind white picket fences just like straight people. But who's being left out of that narrative? Well, in Australia, we have 4,000 to 5,000 homeless youth in the street every night. The marriage campaign is taking away so much of our money when it should be getting funneled into things like homeless queer youth, and queer youth suicide. Queer and trans youth, I say. Oh yeah, there was just a little example. There's some more of my really good research for you. So I typed into DuckDuckGo Sydney Mardi Gras, and the first thing that came up was Australian Bank creates an LGBT-inspired branch for Sydney Mardi Gras. Isn't that nice? Creating a nice little thing for us gays. And they had some gay penguins. You know about the gay penguins at the zoo in Sydney? They're gay and they go to hang out and want to go there. Okay. So let's see if this works, otherwise I'll pull it up. So this is my example, another example in your American context. Let's see if we get sound here, because otherwise my whole thing is going to be wasted.
What do you think burger being introduced to the crowd walk?
What?
So like it's a gay burger or is it?
I just don't really believe in the homosexual lifestyle.
I think it's cool. I think it's a cool idea. I think it's great.
Finally, yeah, it's about time.
Do gay people even eat fast food? Really?
What do you want?
What is the crowd whopper?
You want to try the crowd whopper? Would you like the crowd whopper? Huh?
Do you want to go with me or without me? Because we can go both ways.
You should try. Are they different? What is it?
I don't know. It really does taste different. You don't taste it? I still taste the popper. I think it's the meat. The meat tastes like more like sweeter.
We are all the same.
Say it. It's the same burger.
Everything's the same on the inside versus the outside. Oh my god! She got it. I like it.
I cried in there because I was overwhelmed. A burger has never made me cry before.
You were totally crying. Yeah, you were.
It makes me feel supported, it makes me feel proud, and it's just a burger, but I mean, it's baby steps the whole way.
We are all the same inside.
I think this rapper means that we all have the same rights. Hello, I tell my name.
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes when you do cultural analysis as your main thing, you see stuff like this and you're like, oh, that's bad. It's like really good for everything I'm talking about, which is the kind of contradiction of that thing. Yeah. Okay, so I've got so much to say about this ad, but we'll just see where it takes me in the time. Okay, so the hashtag for this was Be Your Way. So it's all about being your way within this kind of idea of homonormativity, right? There's a certain way that you're allowed to be, and that is within the confines of what is now dictated as gay liberation. And also, so one of the things I really like to pull out from this is the idea of Burger King as like the savior, right? We are Burger King. We really care about gay liberation. But to contextualize this Proud Whopper was only happening for one day during San Francisco Pride at that one Burger King, which is in the middle of the Pride Parade, right? So that's all that happened. But we get this whole ad from it to make it look like Burger King's really like into the gays. And so this is kind of the thing that we generally see around corporations talking about gay liberation, stuff like this, you know. And then also it was just like one piece of paper wrapped around the burger. So it was like, you know, this moment of seeing like gay liberation wrapped around the burger. It's just like, whew, how did we get here? That's what I'm trying to figure out. And then the idea of we're all the same inside, right? We're all the same inside. That's what homonormativity is telling us. We're just like straight people. And I'm kind of like, no, I don't want to be just like straight people. I want to change what that norm is. But gay liberation has taken this up. We are all the same inside. We're just like you. And then corporations have picked up this language, right? That's what neoliberalism does. It subsumes activist language back into itself and then sells it back to us and for a profit. That's what's happening here with most gay products. I love my two mummies. You know, bring out the kids to end it on. She's got a little rainbow there in her love heart. So again, we're seeing this idea of the family, right? Look how acceptable we are. We're really loving and caring. We're really good, right? In this ad, you're not seeing any bears giving blowjobs in the back rooms of the Club of Babylon. This is all about making us look acceptable and cleaning us up, making sure that we are okay for straight audiences. The other thing that I often go on a rant about in terms of all of these campaigns, and particularly around gay marriage, is that we never see any queer sex at all, right? We've all of a sudden become completely desexualized. Sometimes we might see us maybe like giving a hug or like a kiss on the cheek, and that's about it. But here, nothing. There's no sex, right? There's nothing at all. And this is also like if you've been to a Pride Parade, that's not really what's happening. Yeah. No matter how much they try to sanitize us, particularly in San Francisco. I mean, I've been to that Pride Parade. I'm going to tell you. Well, actually, not the Sunday Parade. That was quite sanitized, but the Dyke Parade and the Trans Parade is nothing like this. Okay. What else have we got? I think this means we all have the same rights. Again, see this language of we all have the same rights. We're just like straight people. And pull out the kids to say that, of course, as well. Oh yeah, this one, this is her crying. I mean, the burger's never made me cry before. This is just how empowered we are from Burger King. You know, I'm just feeling so proud standing up here right now to see this pride flag wrapped around. Oh, I'm going to tear. And the idea of, as well, small steps, right? The woman says, I know it's just a small step, but it's part of like a longer process. And that small step is from corporations. Actually, no, of course, all of us as activists in the room know that the small steps are actually Sylvia Rivera throwing that brick. It's actually the organising that we did around the AIDS crisis, right? There's so many small steps, and it's not Burger King. Burger King's coming in the end to try and take our money. And also, let's think about the fact that it's called Burger King, right? And here we have, this is how it ends, right? So if you notice throughout the ad, they don't, in the advertising for it, this is all you get, right? So there's no mention here of Burger King. Because I don't actually want to put their name on it because they still want bigots money as well, you know. So they've got to kind of straddle this line. So here we have the pride flag in a crown, hello monarchy, what is like, I can't even articulate my rage at this image. But this is all that it ends on, right? And so we don't see the Burger King, so you have to be in the know So Burger King's also playing on the way in which in gay liberation we have ways that we communicate with each other because of fear of persecution. So for queers, we have a certain language and a certain way that, that is our type of communication. And here Burger King's playing on that. It's going, oh, if you're in the know, then you know, right? Similarly, throughout the ad, the workers never seem to know what the proud whopper is. Multiple times they say, oh, is it any different? And they're like, I don't know, right? But the queer people, we're in the know. So they're playing on this way in which we ourselves have created a language. And then they're trying to sell it again back to us. Again, here's some other ones. That's the Oreo, lemonade, and Absolute Vodka. Just put like a promo flag on it. Oh, that's yeah, and at the recent Melbourne Mardi Gras, like military Mardi Gras, they also even just had companies didn't even use the pride flag, they just had marched in it in their uniforms without even pretending like that, even slapping a flag on there. But one of the things I pulled out most is the person who says, I think the meat tastes sweeter, right? So I think we can read a lot into this. The idea of queers being, needing to be, by sweetness we think of innocence, right? So queers have consistently been painted as childish. We haven't actually made a step into good heterosexuality. We're back here. We don't have children. We're oversexed. We're all these things, right? So then, of course, not true. I mean, some of us are oversexed. That's true. That's a good thing. But not. We can also have children. But that's the idea in the past, right? That we're sweet and we're innocent. So this person's like, I think the meat tastes sweeter this way in order to ingest queerness to make it acceptable. And one of those ways is this idea of sweetness. And also it comes from the idea of desire within capitalism, right? This desire that we need sweetness. For us in the West, we always have this idea of like sugar, right? Sugar is really a big part of our diet and something that we desire in order to gain pleasure. And this pleasure then is coming from the dead end. So I see this as a kind of idea that pleasure is to eat animals and that are sweet, that need to be made palatable. And this pleasure is inherently linked to the concept of queer sex as non-procreative and therefore solely for pleasure. And the link between meat and sex is solidified in this advertisement in the idea of meat's my preference, yeah? I want to eat shit. It's really what it's joking there in case you missed that. So we can therefore begin, I'm trying to work through this idea of maybe seeing queers as meat, and I'm in the idea of, as well with Brian Kenny, eat the meat. This is kind of going into one part of my thesis. Okay, so I've lost my point and I'm just going to blame the jet lag, even though I've been here for like a week, so it's not really fair. So, I think I've already said that. How much time do I have? Oh, no, okay. I was going to talk about the abject, but let's not go there. Okay. So, this is just the one example I have, but I've got others, don't you worry. This is just a one-off thing. So, I'm kind of getting to this idea around now queers are using animals to gain normativity. This is what I'm starting to see. We're also seeing a huge amount of like queers using whiteness to attain normativity. And able-bodied, etc. And this happens a lot with different movements where in order to try to join a privileged group, another group is left behind or used, right? So queers are starting to show we can eat meat just like straight people. We're not all lesbian vegetarians, we're not all things like that. Here's another example. This is Nando's marching in London Pride. And here they say that it's worth coming out for. So again, using gay language and selling it back to us. And they then equating here eating animals with coming out. And so they say Nando's was extremely proud, another queer word that we use, to participate in Pride in 2012. And they also say on their website, Nando's is not just about the chicken. It's never been about the chicken. It's about the people who make the chicken. First off, obviously no one makes a chicken. Right? They grow themselves. But then it's taking away the chicken from the conversation. And they've also say, for the past 5 years, we've dusted our feathers, put on our best party outfits, and took gay pride by storm. So again, they're using this joke about feathers to highlight their chicken theme. The actual chickens, again, again are forgotten. This enables a rebranding of pride and therefore queerness is through the dead non-human. Placed along, if I place this alongside Burger King, and we'll see some other examples, again, constructing normalised queer is palatable. So it serves to reinforce queers is no longer disposable and what I do talk about as abject, but as normal because we eat animals. So queerness here is being rebranded and made acceptable. So, I'm running low on time. Let's go to Benji the Gable. Oh yeah, who's heard of Benji the Gable? So Benji the Gable was apparently not interested in any of the cows in the paddock, therefore must be gay, you know, like hashtag born this way. And so then he was going to be killed because he was gay, right? So in the gay UK, there was a campaign for him to be saved, and they said, we want to ensure he's not killed off just because he's gay. Interestingly, what happened, Sam Simon, the Simpsons creator, who is gay, rescued him and sent him to a sanctuary. And then he was, the sanctuary then castrated him. And then there was like, oh, how can you castrate him? And the sanctuary were like, well, you know, like we don't know if he was like hashtag born this way. Maybe he just didn't like any of those cows. We can't take the risk of that. And so then this became a big thing, right? Because bulls being seen as virile. I could go into like a long commentary around the AIDS crisis and how queerness with that was painted, especially around gay men, as being weak. And so then we have, this is very reductive, we have a shift towards a focus on really intense masculinity in gay male scenes to show I haven't contracted the disease. But it's very reductive and quick history. So I think we can relate this to say we've got to save this bull, because what do bulls stand for? Virility and power in our ideas of patriarchy, yeah? So he has to be saved not because he's gay. So in this book I read called Beef, A History, I think I am maybe a masochist, they say that beef, that meat is claimed to be the source of power through protein, and they say to be meaty means to possess merit and conviction, to be vegetal means to be practically dead. The obvious irony in the statement is that meat is the dead cow or other non-human animal that is consumed by the alive human. And meaty in this interpretation is apparently about conviction and merit rather than the understanding of this as overly masculine. And so again, we see this as the opposite in gay men. And saving him is also further problematic here because it's not about the death of the non-human, it's about killing the gay, right? So it has nothing to do with Benji. So this then constructs that Benji is only worthy of being alive because he's gay, but edible when he's straight. So this kind of reverses what we usually see in humans. So his life is rendered through his sexuality, and therefore a creation of his sexuality is essential to his being, is perpetuated, the idea that we are born this way within kind of gender binary. So they've used to create queers here in this campaign. Have used to Benji to create ourselves as livable, and therefore our sexuality is inherent as us. Therefore, give us gay marriage as kind of a trajectory thing. So by using a live bull to highlight the life of the queer, the dead heterosexual bulls are forgotten. In this example, it's through the assumed sexuality of the gay bull that queers render themselves as not abject. Well, we don't have time to talk about Lady Gaga's neat dress, but we can save that for another time. Who knows what we're talking about? That was in protesting Don't Ask, Don't Tell. She wore a neat dress. Honestly. So this is my final point. Anyone know about this? Unfortunately, I do too. People, and they came out. Who planned that? Against gay marriage. Actually, also, I think infinitely more concerning is that they support ex-gay ministries. So groups got a hold of this, and so then there was this big controversy, and they had kiss-ins at Chick-fil-A. And here we see some graffiti where it says, God loves fags and chicken. Also, say no to homophobia, say no to Chick-fil-A. I used to like Chick-fil-A, but I love my gay friends more. Honestly, sometimes Ali's get things so wrong. Okay, just don't have a song like that, please. And at the top, we have a kiss-in at Chick-fil-A. And down the bottom, this was some signs that were put around be more tolerant, boycott Chick-fil-A. So, what's something missing from the debates is, of course, the non-human animal. We're debating whether one should buy the chicken or not buy the chicken, but no one is talking about the chicken herself. In fact, the dead chicken is used within the protesting of the company. So one of the tropes used by people protesting was a person in a cow suit holding a misspelled sign. This was a play in a previous advertising campaign Chick-fil-A had, where they had a cow holding a sign saying "Eat more chicken," spelled wrong. The signs that the cows are holding look as though they are written in blood, but the lettering is black. Therefore, the cows are acknowledging their own deaths by the slaughterhouse and advocating humans eat more chicken to save their own lives. Notwithstanding, if humans weren't eating cows, they would probably never be born. So the use of the incorrect spelling by the cows is an attempt to show their apparent stupidity. We are not meant to believe that cows could write, let alone spell correctly. This reinforces human-centric notions of intelligence and therefore inability. The trope of the non-human who spells badly can be seen in other forms, particularly the phenomenon of cat humour on the internet, most notably the website I Can Has Cheeseburger, that showcases the images of cats with misspelled jokes. Here, non-human animals are selling themselves or selling other animals in a common trope in animal advertising. Have you all seen Suicide Food? The idea of animals selling themselves. Interestingly, Burger King had a similar campaign. They had a series of mad cow advertisements where somebody was sneakily eating a chicken burger. This would culminate in like a hotel. This would culminate, it was always a man, right? He was like sneakily eating this burger. And it would culminate in a cow storming in the room and mooing angrily. The guilty male, and she was like also a female cow because she was kind of curvy and like had big eyelashes, just in case you don't know. So this would culminate in her storming in angrily, as though he's cheating on her, right? The guilty male human would then try to make excuses for cheating on the cow, or cheating on the beef, I guess. The crucial difference between this series and a Chick-fil-A advertisement is with the Burger King advertisements, the cow is selling herself as dinner. So by queers using the dead chickens as their platform demanding their own lives as livable, they are again reinforcing their normative position via the animal. Within the creation of the privileged gay, worthy of marriage, the privatised animal exploitation is rendered accessible. This greasy, fatty, homophobic sandwich, as it was called, is no longer about the dead filling, but the acceptable queer. So why does this matter? Well, in a room where the animal part I don't really need to worry too much about. It's an issue because there's a constructed hierarchy here. Who is being utilised in the service of normativity? Animals are quite literally seen as property. Exploiting them in the name of homonormativity is an acceptable endeavour because animals are not recognised as subjects of a life. However, the use of animals to achieve normativity shows that with a construction of human supremacy. The creation of any hierarchy is one we always need to question and tear down. As queers, instead of eating meat, we should be tearing down hierarchies, including that of what I'm calling human normativity. In the four examples overall, it is evident that within larger society, the agenda is to normalise queerness, to make gays just like heterosexuals. Therefore, it reinforces heteronormativity. This reinforcement of heteronormativity is done by the death of non-humans. Gays are linked to dead meat, assuaged by the fact that they can eat the meat and therefore transcend their abjection. After all, they were born this way. With this pink-washed and what we call pink dollar animal cruelty, gays deemed the eating of meat acceptable and in fact gay. This pink-washed capitalist project is reflecting in the hashtag Burger King's Be Your Way. In this capitalist rhetoric of self, it'll be the only way that you wish to be, and that way is to consume the dead flesh of animals. That is to be mass-produced. I want to know, echoing the man's question in the Burger King advertisement, is that it? Does queerness want to in fact be the same inside? That is, compromised of mass-produced meat from animals tortured in factory farms. Or in fact, whether we want to still be getting or giving blowjobs in the back room of clubs for Babylon. Thank you. Any time for questions? 5 minutes. I know. The next session is meant to start at 5:30. one. We have like questions. 5. We did start. We started 10 minutes late. Yeah. Go.
I have a question for Jess.
Yeah.
This may be tangential to specific points, but I think it's within the wheelhouse of expertise. I'm curious how you feel about the language and the framing of the conversation around gay and queer tolerance, and the predominance of tolerating the gay agenda. Can you speak to that at all?
So do you mean like how gay people are asking to be tolerated?
As in, like, the conversation being framed around like, the concept of tolerance.
Yeah.
We're tolerating this.
I mean, I think the word tolerance is one of the most vile words in the English language. Because, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be tolerated. I want queer liberation and revolution. So that's what we should be aiming for. Because to be tolerated is within, it's really only what homonormativity is ever going to get us. We're never going to be straight. We're never going to be seen as we're never going to gain the privilege of heteronormativity. Or some of us might, who already have certain privileges anyway, and already have gained those privileges. So I think that in saying tolerate us, what we are actually doing is saying tolerate some of us, those who are acceptable to you. And that's going to be, acceptable with families who are white, who have nice houses, etc. And instead of actually going, what we want to do is change the conversation, change what acceptance is, and to make sure that, those who are accepted are the bears, giving blowjobs in alleyways, along with queer families as well. Yeah.
I have a question from Rebecca. How do you say it? I was fascinated by the parallels between the education system and the attitude towards animals and the industrialized killing of them. I was just curious if you've gone back in history any, because the instance of an industrialized education system is really only a couple of hundred years old, and the instance of using animals for food is thousands of years old. So I'm just curious about that juxtaposition.
Yeah, so I actually do agree with you. So I was actually, I was looking at North American systems of schooling, which are based on the Prussian industrial model. So it's very militaristic in the way that education was conceptualized in North America. Sorry, I'm going to make this right here. Yes, and so I definitely think that there are like indigenous epistemologies to education that are completely different, and I definitely agree with you that education before that model was introduced was definitely different. And I think that also like meat production wasn't always as industrialized as it is right now. So I think the two, I don't want to, I'm not 100% sure if they occurred simultaneously, but I feel like with the industrialization of both systems, they might have kind of occurred almost at the same times, and they became mutually reinforcing systems along with other industrial complexes, like the military industrial complex, for example. So,
And I just want to say one more thing. I was thinking about it because I'm still contemplating this whole idea of us being the voice of animal liberation when they can't speak for themselves. And I was thinking, what other groups in social justice are like that? And in a way, children are very similar. So that's another parallel.
yeah. I don't know if I like fully agree with the idea of like, non-human animals not like speaking for themselves and us being their voice. I think that number one, it kind of adopts colonial mentality of like saviorism. So I feel like that's not something I fully agree with. And then also I think non-human animals do speak for themselves. So they scream, they
you. I was just saying there's a parallel between. I didn't mean it in the way that
Okay.
that sounded,
Sorry.
but that they're more vulnerable because people don't understand them,
Oh,
and so
right.
are children.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah.
Oh, I took that blowjobs.